Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another session of Novo Pioneer Facebook Live. Today, we're really excited to have our assistant principal from Novo Pioneer Girls with us to talk a lot more about how we do teacher professional development at the school. So, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Dr. Nyaboke Nduati. I'm the assistant principal at the girls' school.
Great. So, just to jump to the first question that we get from parents. So, because our approach to 844 is significantly different from the traditional approach, we get a lot of questions about the classroom setup. So, the teachers that we get to teach to deliver our curriculum, the 844 curriculum in an inquiry-based way, where do we source them from, and how does the recruitment process look like for the teacher?
We have a talent team that will vet the teachers before they even get to the interview process, but once they get them to us, we look at them from different angles. First, all the teachers will do a sample teach so that we can see a sample of what they can do in the classroom. They'll get a lesson plan, so if it's biology, for example, they'll do a lesson in biology and there'll be a number of us observing the lesson. At the end of the lesson, they'll get a chance to reflect on the lesson that they taught. What are some things that you think went well in that lesson? What are some things that you think you could have done differently? And as we're interviewing them after that sample lesson, we are not expecting perfection. Because, I mean, these teachers are coming from many different backgrounds. Some of them are coming from more traditional schools that are more teacher-centered. But as we're speaking with them, we're looking for a willingness to look at your lesson and see the things that could have gone differently. For example, if a teacher is able to reflect and say, maybe I could have done this thing differently, or maybe I could have engaged students more, then that shows that willingness to grow, which is something that we value very much at Nova Pioneer. Once they're accepted, they'll go through 6 weeks of intensive training, which we have every year. During these 6 weeks, we are introducing them to our model. We're teaching them some of these best practices that we use in our classroom. They get to internalize this model that we use, our approach to education. Initially, sometimes it can be difficult for teachers to balance teacher talk versus allowing room for students to be able to contribute. So, for example, you're introducing this concept, or maybe it's something you've been talking about for a while, and you need students to be able to think through the concept for themselves, and the teacher is there as a facilitator to make sure that you're guiding the students in the right direction without giving them all the answers. So this is an area that can be a bit of a challenge, and it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of coaching for a lot of teachers to get to a place where you're not just giving away all the answers. You're inviting students to think through this concept.
When you look at the support mechanisms that are being put for the students and also the teachers themselves, so what would you tell the parents that feel that maybe, for instance, that if the children, if the students in class are being given, more time to participate or to think, or just if, let's say, for example, you're being asked to build on your answer, then they're having doubts because they feel like the students might be falling behind. So how would you answer that with a focus on teacher professional development?
In terms of like that transition for the students, and it's a transition for the teachers as well, it does take time, the students who come to us at the beginning of the year, we do recognize that they are coming from a background that might be different from what we have here at Nova Pioneer. So we put a lot of supports for both the students and the teachers so that they are able to make this transition together, so that the teachers can be comfortable with this idea of inviting students into the conversation in the classroom. On the student side, what we do is that when they come in at the beginning of the year, we have what we call week 0, where we're spending an entire week just getting the students prepared to learn within our model. Teachers are also trained to make the classroom a safe environment so that all students feel like they can contribute. And some of the ways that we prepare our teachers to be able to do this is to teach them how do you pull a student into the conversation. So instead of like just picking somebody when they're not ready, what are some things that you can do so that when you're calling the student into the conversation, they are actually in a space where they can respond without feeling called out or put on the spot.
What are some of the key attributes that you're looking for? What are some of the key attributes that appeal to you? And actually the attributes that would make a teacher successful in delivering curriculum the Nova Pioneer way?
There are things that we look for that are non-negotiables. And one of the major non-negotiables that we have at Nova Pioneer is content mastery. You have to have mastered your content very, very well. You're coming in, yes, we are going to train you in how to teach that content the Nova Pioneer way. So that's the part that we own and work with the teachers to sharpen. But the content mastery, they have to come in really, really strong in that. If you're teaching mathematics, you have to be an expert in mathematics. So like even before they go into the sample teach that I was talking about earlier, where we observe them teaching and then they reflect on the lesson, they sit a content test, which is to test them on the subjects that they're coming in to teach. And they have to score very, very highly on that test to even proceed to the next step. Because we want all of the teachers that come into our school to be very, very strong in their subject areas. So that's the first non-negotiable that we have at Nova Pioneer. And then we also want our teachers to be very passionate about teaching. We want them to really value knowledge and value learning. We want them to be committed to our students. So it's not like a teacher who just comes because they want a job. They want to teach somewhere. It has to be a teacher who is really committed to the profession and is really committed to student success, not just in the classroom, but even outside of the classroom. Not just a teacher so that you can teach your lesson. You're a teacher so that you can be fully invested in the growth and the education of all of our students.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's a really beautiful and insightful way to wrap up the interview. As always, we're really looking forward to interacting with you more. So in case you're interested in your child benefiting from this approach to learning, make sure you submit your application for high school or for primary school up to class 3. You submit your application on novapioneer.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening to us. Look forward to our next Facebook Live.